we're going to go ahead and get started. We may have some other people streaming in, some stragglers, but we have an exciting session today. The topic of the session is, do we need an app for that? Mobile options in scholarly publishing. I'll be moderating today. I'm Melanie Dolachek with Allen Press. We have three great speakers today. I think you're really going to hear some interesting stuff. We have Drew Onufer from National Geographic, Rachel Peppeling from the American Chemical Society, and Richard Padley from Semantico. You're going to hear a little bit about strategies for mobile apps, as well as best practices, things to avoid to ensure that you have a successful app launch. Just out of curiosity, by raise of hands, how many of you have an app or are currently developing an app for your publication or organization? So quite a few. That's exciting. Obviously, there's a lot to learn here today, and so I'm going to go ahead and introduce our first speaker. Drew Onufer is Vice President for Interactive and Digital Products for the National Geographic Digital Media team. In this role, he is responsible for leading the definition, development, and go-to-market strategies for the National Geographic mobile, tablet, and desktop applications. Drew joined National Geographic in 2009 to spearhead the successful relaunch of the Complete National Geographic, a digital desktop archive product of National Geographic magazine. The Complete National Geographic won the 2010 Adobe Max Digital Publishing Award and the 2010 American Business Award for Interactive Multimedia Consumer Entertainment. Drew has also been responsible for the launch of iPad apps that deliver interactive versions of the National Geographic and National Geographic Traveler magazines. Under his guidance, National Geographic has also included numerous iPhone, iPad, Android apps with top 10 free, paid, or top grossing apps in such categories as reference, photography, books, news, and travel. Please help me welcome Drew.
Thank you, Melanie. Hi, my name is Drew Onufer from National Geographic, and I manage our apps and mobile, web, and ebook experience for us. And what I hope to do today is give you some lessons from a business to consumer experience. Not, 100% related to what you do, but hopefully, some idea of the members that you're serving are consumers of your publications too. We just do it probably a little lower scale, a little bit lower reading level. So what I was going to hopefully do for you today was give you a little bit taste of what we have in our app portfolio today, to tell you how we see the media landscape and how that affects our sort of point of view, and then take you through really when we approach a new app or mobile web or ebook, how we try to define it up front and then go to build the product. And I think that's something that all of you, even if you're not into technology, are going to have some level of interaction with that, whether it's a vendor or something else, someone else, the contractor, whoever gets you to help to do this for you. And then I'll take you through one of our apps that we recently launched, a National Parks app, to give you some idea of the thought process that we had behind there. And then I think questions at the end. And so right now we have 6 iPhone apps, 13 iPad apps, 9 apps that are dual build that work on both the iPhone and the iPad, 2 Android apps, and that's actually on 3 different Android platforms, and then which require different work, and then 2 Windows 7. But most of our focus has been mostly on the Apple iOS ecosystem for. So this was when they launched the iPad 2, Steve Jobs demoed one of our apps based on 50 greatest photographs, a special issue of our magazine. And you can see from last year, this is excluding our magazine downloads, which are all free because then it's free to pay. The mix of free and paid apps that we had. We probably had more paid. Going forward, we'll have fewer paid apps that will register as paid. We're probably doing more where the app itself is free. There's some free content in there, some freemium, and then you upgrade to a subscription or in-app purchase. Because typically what you see is much, much greater market awareness from a free app than a paid app. And that I think the people that are doing games have probably proven out the most that the in-app purchase models, at least at this time, seem to be the most successful for monetizing apps. So these are launched or upgraded. There's about 20...
I think there's 22 categories of apps on the Apple iStore. And these are some of the categories that we target. Obviously, magazines, there's specifically a subcategory called Newsstand. So they launched that in October. So we have all of our main magazines in there. The Spanish one's not a Newsstand because it has to be a subscription version. But they also have a news category. Books. They also have the iBooks, and then they have Books apps. So these are book apps, not the iBook store. I could do separately on the iBook store. But that's something to consider. You know, the iBook store is sort of more similar to a Kindle book that you might read. Travel category, reference and navigation, some of our map apps, photography, obviously, and entertainment for our film and television divisions. So for us, the categories become very important for reaching consumers because probably one of the biggest challenges is discoverability of your app. And, you know, except probably for the medical category right now, there's probably not a lot of obvious categories for some of your publications. So your job's probably even harder in reaching out to your members. If they go search and find something, they'll probably find it. But if they're just browsing in general, for consumer brand, the categories make a big difference in how consumers find it. And then see, these are some of the apps that we either launched or upgraded. Weird But True is a kid's book. The Adventure, and that's a paid version. Adventure is something actually put in the lifestyle category, but it's a special issue of the magazine. Trail Maps is more of a functional app where you can take some of our topographical maps and, you know, chart your hike or bike. Titanic was in support of some of the shows that we ran on our channel for the 100th anniversary of the Titanic. That was free, really just promoting people to go back and watch on our channel. NG Today app is a free app based on web content, sort of best of National Geographic. And it's fed through our web system and the national parks, which I'll go into a little bit more detail later. And then on the digital magazine side, we've had great success. This is only, you know, the blue here just represents since we've had subscriptions on the iPad. Subscriptions launched, I think, in February of last year. By the time we finally got it, it was July. And, you know, between July and March of this year, we went from, you know, started off with, you know, a couple thousand in the first month to, you know, 90,000 by the end of March. And that, the green line, represents all of our other distribution platforms. So that would include Zinio, which goes on the iPad too, but through their own app, also desktop. It would include Amazon Kindle and the Nook platform. So those three other platforms represent, and some of those we obviously started before the iPad. So we're quickly, the other platforms actually, you know, you can double that for the top line number of subscribers for us. But the introduction of Newsstand by Apple was huge for magazine discovery, especially for consumer magazines. When we look at, you know, the media landscape right now, I mean, I could, if anybody, I think it was the Lee Rainey from Pew. I believe he gave a presentation here either today or tomorrow. If it hasn't happened, go see it.
was this morning. Good. I actually spoke at National Geographic yesterday. It's fascinating. I mean, you could layer all of his data on top of this, but the short of it is all of us are consuming content in radically different ways than just, before the iPhone came out, so 5 years ago. Between smartphones and tablets, it's just amazing. More people have smartphones than have electricity right now. I mean, there's 7 billion people on the planet and 6 billion iPhones. There's 6 billion phones, mobile phones. Last year was that tipping point where when PC sales and non-PC sales, I mean, your phone and your tablet are, basically a mobile computer. They're outnumbering the number of desktop or laptops shipped, and that's not expected to change. So what that means is the way that people, if you think of, the number of young people that graduate from college and never get a landline in their apartment. Those numbers are high right now. They just have a cell phone. That's their way of connecting. The people that may not have a computer at their house is going to be, especially the younger generation, they may just be constantly working or consuming on whatever device that they have. And maybe they have a keyboard connected to a tablet or something like that. The apps market. These predictions, I think there was another, Mary Meeker, who's one of the Wall Street analysts, had something similar to this that came out recently. But again, between paid apps and advertising, the thing that's probably most interesting here is that, especially for publishers, is that there seems to be a willingness to pay versus the web. That people are actually paying for some of the same exact content that a couple of years ago people were giving away for free. But because it's on the apps, it's in the App Store, they might be willing to pay for it. And that might not just be, hey, it's on the App Store, I think I have to pay. Believe me, there's tons of free apps. But people are changing the content in the way that they're doing it, in the way they experience it, and people are getting value in it. And there may be small things within the app that people are enjoying that you don't even think about versus a website. So really going from that touch environment or point and click environment to a touch and swipe environment is meaningful. On the magazine side, this is one projection, and I would imagine that journals are probably not that much different as far as this is measured in money. But if you look at the light blue in there, that growth of digital. And what does that mean for your business? I mean, right now, pretty much all of us are in this situation. Consumer magazines, scholar publications, you're in the position where your iPad version or whatever is an offshoot of your print version. You're probably starting there first, and then you're building this experience from that. When we get to the point where we have 35% or 40% and all the growth is on the digital-only side, I mean, all those iPad customers that I showed before, 80% of them don't have any relationship to us in print. They're digital-only subscribers. They're new customers for us. It's great. But when we get to that point where there's a tipping point, do we build our what was our magazine digital first, and print becomes the secondary thing? That really could be that. And if you do that, then there's lots of decisions that you need to make about your publishing systems, how you do it. Does print become a luxury item? I don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. But if we look, obviously, the music market, who buys CDs anymore? Clearly, there's no more CD stores you can go buy in that. I mean, if you look at the book market from 2007, 2010, 3 years, the top bookseller went from majority print sales, so this is Amazon, majority print sales to majority digital sales. Now, magazines are much different than books. You had fixed layouts in books. I'm talking mainly narrative titles. You don't have, a lot of photos, infographics, and stuff like that. But when people crack the code on digital, is it going to be that much different for books? The way it's looking right now is probably not. So this is for us that we have three magazines, one kids magazine for schools. it's a crucial time for us to figure this out and get there and get in front of our customers so that when they are majority digital, that we can serve them. So what I wanted to do now is really sort of step back and sort of walk through the sort of process by which we would go about looking at whether it was a new app or a mobile website or an ebook experience or something like that. Is really first, walk through the process by which we would evaluate the thing. And I think the first things that all of us need to do is really answer the question why. Next, you're going to sort of identify what the goals and how you're going to measure success of what you're going to build. And I'm going to call it a product. That product could be a digital magazine. It could be an app experience. It could be something like that. And then really defining the scope. And there will be instances where you hire a third party to do this for you. But you have to be involved. You can't, if you don't have, the third party's never going to know your consumer base, your customer base, your member base as well as you do. You can't completely outsource this part of it. This is the thinking of it. This is what do my users want to get. It's interesting, when Melanie called me about this presentation, I just finished reading a book called Switch. It's one of these, businessmen. And one of the anecdotes in there was from a guy from Gerard Koshan. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing his name. And he was the editor for the Manufacturing and Service Operations Management Journal. And he was having a really hard time with peer reviews. Like 2 years was the average time that it took for something to get peer reviewed. And his thing was, hey, we're operations people. We should be able to do it better than the chemical people. I mean, come on, we should, why can't we do this better? And he did a simple thing of just posting the status of every single article that was under peer review on an Excel spreadsheet and a website, and really, to some extent, shamed some of the members that were reviewing the articles into like, hey, he's getting it done faster than me. Why aren't I getting it done? So in that instance, I look at that as a good instance of like he used really what today we would say is a low-tech type of technology, Excel spreadsheet, but really sort of ask that question of what's my biggest problem? What am I trying to solve here? And that goes to answering that question, why? What is the problem that you're going to try to solve here? Is it how people access the content? Is it the distribution cost that you have that maybe you want to lower? Is it the timeliness? Is it by the time that the journal gets there, it's already out of date? Do you have a journal that has great infographics or other multimedia things that you want to be able to deliver that you can't deliver in print? These questions there's a whole range of these questions that you could ask yourself, but really getting to the core of that, of anybody that's involved in doing this for you, they should be able to answer why and should be able to report. Your editor should be able to tell your board, this is why we're doing this. And then in that same breath this is what I would call as our sort of, what is our distinctive competence? What do we do special? I mean, there's going to be some things in journals that everybody's going to want to be able to do. Everybody's going to want to be able to adjust the point size of the text or something like that. Everybody's going to, have some table stakes things, but what are you going to do that's different? And you could be in a situation where you have you're competing against another journal, and maybe you're going back and forth with members. How do you distinguish yourself maybe from that particular journal? So really answering that question why up front is important. It doesn't take a lot of time, but you should be able to do that. And at least be able to sort of, if your consultant is telling you to do that they can answer that question on your behalf or something like that. The next step is really sort of saying, okay, are we going to build this? If we do build it, what are the goals to building it? Really, there's three aspects to it. One is, what are the product goals? And by that mean what internally do you want to get out of it? What do you as a society or a publication want to get? Do you want to lower your cost? Do you want to diversify your revenue? Do you want to have higher user satisfaction? It could be a variety of different factors, but what are those concrete goals that you want to get on it? And then the people that are going to be buying it from you, or members that are going to be using it on a regular basis, what are they going to expect out of it? What is the user going to get? Is the user going to get something, is it going to be cheaper? Is it going to be more timely? Is it going to be additional content? It could be, a variety of things. If you go back to peer reviews, is it, hey, could I read an article and, offer, take some dictation things that you can now change to text and submit that as part of my review of an article or something like that. I mean, it could be that you develop a specialized app just for that review process. It could be a variety of different things. And then success metrics are then looking at those goals and user needs in a really concrete way of saying, okay, if I do this and I'm going to start now and I'm going to launch it in January, December, whatever, within a year, 6 months, whatever, this is what I want to achieve. Is it the number of downloads? Is it the number of minutes spent with the journal? Is it new users? What is it that you think you can measure? And you'd be surprised, too, with the technology of what you can actually measure. It's very similar to websites. It's not completely there yet, but, the number of unique visitors, time spent, specific content viewed, all that stuff, you can get those types of metrics from these digital products. This next step is then really defining how big is the scope. Is it bigger than a breadbasket? Is it, what are you going to do in there? And really defining the scope. There's two elements there. And really for something that we're doing, magazine type or journal things, is really the functional requirements. And those are like the hardware, software type of things. That's, is it going to be able to do, and then the content requirements. And those are, what do we need to have text? Do we need to have video? Do we need to have infographics? The functional requirements could be, do I do something that's related, do I have a mining app journal and I want to be able to use it in the field or something like that? Or do I want to be able to take notes within the journal? Do I want to be able to share an article with a friend? Do I want to like it on Facebook? Do I want to be able to do this? All those types of functional things, really defining those things up front. Again, these are all things that I believe you can do internally, whether it's you yourself or if it's a contractor that's doing it for you, at least sort of being able to have those, if it's a contractor that's doing it for you, then be able to tell you, okay, this is what I learned from your organization. Because again, this is the bread and butter of what you're doing. This is going to answer the questions of how you're going to satisfy your customers. If you don't have this in your mind going into the project, there's probably a good chance that you're going to deliver something that people are going to be like, yeah, not really what I wanted. This is how we at National Geographic look at the entire process. What I sort of walk through is really now that product concept definition. That's obviously not all of the work. Then you have to sort of design it. Then you have to develop it. You have to launch it. Or we have to test it. You have to launch it. And then whatever we launch, we never are, we're always going to be looking at improvement. So really looking at this as at a life cycle of how do you approach that. For us, the three items that we look for a product concept are, is it something that we believe is commercially viable? And for us, commercially doesn't necessarily mean revenue. It could be, gaining new members or something like that. Is it technically feasible? Is it something that, is it scratch and sniff on the iPad? Although I did read that there's electronic noses now, or they can do it, but I don't think they can actually emanate the smells from the iPad yet. So, or is the technology going to cost you so much that you can't do it? So answering those questions up front are important to doing before you get into the build phase. Once you're in the build phase, this is really sort of
we're ready to start something. Well, do I need to build it? Can somebody else build it for me? Is there a vendor out there that I can partner with where I have, maybe a licensing agreement with them? Taking all those things into consideration. Because then this is also going to, when you have all those other things defined for you, then maybe the answer is, something I was thinking this was an app going into it, but coming out, it looks like iAuthor can do everything that I wanted to do. Why don't I just use iAuthor? Or, these new EPUB formats that with fixed layouts, I could probably do that, and I think I could sell it for more on the iBook store. Or, I need to do location-based services, and I need to do it this way. Or, hey, this is going to be completely free. I don't want to have to deal with, most of my users are Android. Let's just make it a mobile web experience. So some of those things will be driven by this. And then obviously how much you're going to spend on it. That's going to come into play based on what your goals are. If you have a goal where it's going to satisfy most of your members, how much is that investment worth for you? And again, that app mobile ebook decision, I think, is really at this point. And when I look at it, it's going to flow into what you defined as what your goals were, why you were doing this, what the scope of the product was, and then really looking at the cost benefits of each platform. Apps are probably going to give you the most functionality, but you're going to have an issue with app discoverability in some instances. The web is going to give you the best ubiquity, but actually discoverability there is an issue too. And it turns out that most people expect stuff on mobile web to be free. Is this something that you're going to want to give away for free? If you're going to go the ebook route, some of that's you're hemmed in with sort of standardized formats right now. Is that going to solve your needs? So that might be easier for your cost of developing it, but you might be limited by functionality that you can deliver. And then, once you build it, you're going to have to launch it, you're going to have to fix it, and, you're going to have to reevaluate it constantly, how you're going to do it. These things aren't changing. There's always going to be, we've just seen all this digital disruption happening right now. We're constantly going to have to stay on top of this to serve people because they're going to expect more from us. So what I want to do next was sort of walk through one of the apps that we just launched. Right now, this is our National Parks app. The iPhone version launched in April for National Parks Week. We didn't get the iPad version done in time, so we're launching that in June 14th. So that's coming up, and walk you through some of the ways that we looked at this. So from our perspective, okay, why do we want to do a National Parks app? Well, first of all, we've had a long history in covering national parks from a media perspective, from magazine, books, and video. And we have a good reputation. Our books sell very well on this. And we wanted to try to look at a way that we could sort of take our expertise in that content and combine it with sort of a real-world visit experience to the park. And what we looked out in the landscape of other national park properties out there was that nobody was trying to have a combination of both. They either had great pictures of national parks or some information about visiting national parks, but not trying to marry the content and the functional tools together. And then, we set out what we thought were our goals and user needs success metrics. We're going to put this in the travel category. Very important for our purposes to be to get something that stays in the top of that category, get that virtuous cycle. What we've seen with other apps, where it's if you get Apple promotion, you can get to the top of the category, but the quality of the app makes you stay there, because you're constantly getting that user feedback. So really develop something that can have a greenfield life of its own. User engagement, really inspiring people to use the app for something in a real world experience. Really look at a monetization scheme where we're generating revenue through sponsorship in the app, also through in-app purchases. We looked at this as something that we can reuse. So we might be able to use the code base that we developed here for other apps. And and enhance our partnerships that we have currently with the National Parks Foundation and other organizations that support the national parks. On the user side, we want to give the person the ability to plan, and I think that's probably going to be done more on the iPad versus when you're on the iPhone. When you cross, a certain longitude, latitude, we will expose some content for you related to that particular park. Other sort of functional tools that you'll be able to use in there. And then the metrics that we're looking at for this particular app is, 1, downloads, 2, people that are converting from that free download that has some free content in it to the premium content. How we're doing in that travel category, what's our user satisfaction, and then a return on investment metric for us. The scope, this isn't the complete list, but from the functional side of it, we did things like geotagging points of interest, geofencing, that's when you sort of reach a certain longitude, latitude, something happens with the app. The ability to do in-app purchases, creating, saving, sharing itineraries, being able to favorite different pieces of content, sorting activities, bringing in live feeds to it. We built some stamps in there that you can collect on various parks. And then for us to also weave in some sponsorship things, also to have that dynamic. So one sponsor can sponsor 1 month, another sponsor can sponsor another month without us having to go back and resubmit an app change. And then on the content side, we wanted to have that, what was the right mix of the segregation of free and premium content. From our perspective, focus on what we feel was what unique for us was, expert tips from our photography, some of our archival photos, and, user photos, other things like that. Park secrets that we created, expert itineraries, reusing some of the book content that we had. For the iPad version, one of the reasons for our delay was to go back and make sure that everything was high resolution, so that that the newest iPad has that 2048 resolution screen, and then these stamps that I mentioned too. So for us, we decided to build, and for us it really came down to really being able to build a user experience that we could customize. And I think the benefit to us was that be able to reuse the code base there. There wasn't probably, in this particular scenario, other than maybe magazines where you have more of an industry built up around supporting digital magazines, there wasn't really that much of an opportunity to partner with somebody. And we weren't really going to go out and buy a firm. So some of those choices, it sort of led us to this build thing. But this is going to change for us. We're in this stage, Wild West stage right now, where we're it's kind of costly to do these things. And over time, I would expect vendors to get much better, and other providers to come in and help fill some of these voids. On our magazine side, we use these Adobe digital publishing suite tools. So again, we use those for building our print things, but then we use those same tools to build the interactive version of the magazine. So in that one, we've sort of licensed the tools, and then month after month, we're sort of controlling the user experience, but set in with so in that one, we're sort of using more of a partner type of solution. When it came down to why an app versus an ebook versus mobile web, for us it was probably a combination of these things. At the time, and some of this is changing, some of the geotagging stuff that you could do in HTML5, you could probably do today. When we first started this project, you couldn't. So HTML5 is probably coming along there, but there were specific things that we wanted to do with geotagging within the app that you couldn't really do. Frictionless commerce, going the Android right or mobile web, we wanted to make money out of this. The App Store, even paying that 30% tax, it's so easy just to type in your password. Forcing a user to pull out their credit card while they're carrying a phone, type in 16 digits, type in another 3 digit security code, type in their name, type in their billing address. That's a lot of steps. If you can get somebody to do it once and then reuse it, it's great, but it's a lot of steps to expect of users to do. And that, again, willingness of people to pay on iTunes, high resolution photography, we can't, we're in the situation right now where if you laid our magazine, print magazine, next to an iPad 3, the iPad 3 is going to be more vibrant than the print magazine. The files that we send to our printer now are lower qualities than the files that we render on the iPad 3. So, it's for us, that's huge. It makes a big difference for people. And again, the investment that I talked about of being able to reuse for us, this sort of led us to this, the app decision. So these are just some of the screenshots. Somebody may be planning a visit to the park, the utility aspect of geotagging when you're at a park, knowing where something specifically is. This is sort of user hub, being able to go from park to park, identifying what parks you paid for, what haven't. These are different stamps that people can collect for each park. Here's just a sort of going from the free experience to the purchased experience. The free experience, we're going to have weather feeds and stats and some other stuff, some other, places to, how to get there, where to stay, other things that are free. And then, specific content on photo tips and park secrets, what to see and things to do that people will pay for. And in some places we had some of these discounted because we had a sponsorship related to it. So the great thing about these things is you can play with the price all over the place. You can make it free, you can make it paid, you can switch it, you can really test it out. And the fact that some people may have paid for something and the next people didn't pay, not that big of a deal. People aren't, the person that paid for something, when they go back to the app and it's free, it doesn't show up as free to them. They've already paid for it, so they don't even know that there's a price differential to it. And you can change it. People raise prices. Hey, I think I underpriced this. I can actually, for what I'm doing, I can, raise the price for doing that. Things like what to do, what to see, other things that we thought were unique that we were going to bring, monetize it. We had some of our professional photographers and go to the parks, take classic things, how to get the first sunrise that hits the U.S. in Acadia, things like that, the best shot of Old Faithful at Yellowstone, things like that, and then show that user how they can do it. And I think, when we go for what's next, one of the things that I think is going to be big for us is we have some user-generated photography in the app right now, but it's going to be going back and allowing people while they're at the park to submit photos on the fly. That will be big for us. So we have the iPad release coming up. We're going to test out some merchandise transactions, some of those stamps that people are already putting them up on Pinterest. So we're going to see if people want to buy hats or T-shirts or whatever and we'll go to a vendor, Cafe Press, and have them fulfill it for us, but see what demand's there. And that's a great test for us because can we, in the future then use this digital product to also sell print, physical products. When I look at our mapping, our Atlas applications is our next best-selling app. Why not, while they're in there, let somebody touch and order a physical print map and have it delivered to their house? We're going to look at bundling a bunch of parks. Right now, they're all a la carte purchases, so bundle it in, to give the customer a higher price point, but savings overall. Video, we want to bring into the park. Again, a derivative, we're probably looking at a City Guides app that will probably use the same framework, but have a different design and layout to that. And then the user photos. So then when I look back at the success metrics so far, we said we wanted to get 900,000 downloads in the first year, being a free app. So we've gotten just over 400,000 through, I think, Sunday. So in the first, 10% of the year, we reached 45% of the goal. So we're on track there. Paid conversions, we were trying to get 10%. We're at 20%. So that's good for us. That may mean that we could actually raise the price. The travel category, we got great Apple promotions. Start out, we were App of the Week. We were definitely, in that number one top 10 #1 free travel for about 2 weeks, top grossing app for about 2 weeks, top 10. We subsequently dropped off. So we'll see. I think our iPad launch will be great. People that bought anything on the iPhone, it's going to be a universal app. You pay for it once, it's going to be there. So we're hoping that that iPad experience will sort of help us get back up into those categories. And also with the summer season, we expect this app to be somewhat seasonal in the ratings. The ratings are updated on sort of a daily basis. User satisfaction, we came out and we said if we don't have 3 stars or higher, we're doing something wrong. So we've been at 4 out of 5 stars so far, so that's good. The biggest complaint the reason we're not at 5 is we only did 28 or 20 parks. There's 58 national parks. So, we'll get to Denali, we'll get to Big Bend, we'll get to the ones that we didn't do. We did the first 20 purely based on the number of visits to the park. And it was more of just a content, cost for us versus, how many people. We're getting a lot of complaints about Big Bend in Texas, but when you look at the visitor numbers on it, they don't compare to some of these other ones. So we have to weigh that against, adding those in there. But that's, something that we're going to look at in the future too. And then the return on investment, we've about 40% the way there. So I'd put that, we haven't fully paid this off yet, but we're getting there. And, again, we expect it to be able to grow. So I probably went longer than. So
let's just take a few questions,
okay.
And then if there's time at the end, then we'll take some more.
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, come on up to the mic. Sorry.
Go ahead. So, Chimani is one of your competitors, I suppose. I saw a talk from them at at kind of a startup roundtable in Boston some time ago, and they opted for an app that was kind of like an offline app, that all of the data was downloaded in one go. And the reason that they did that was because the 3G coverage in Yellowstone is not that hot. So did you go the same route?
Mostly. Things like the live weather feeds and things like that aren't going to work when you don't have 3G connectivity. So, all the photography's built into this app too.
Right.
We had made the same calculation. So yes. And that's especially important on the phone side. But over time, you're going to see that. I would expect to see that change. The coverage is just going to get better.
Go on.
Hi. How do you deal with poor user reviews in your ratings, and does that make any difference when you go to make updates for the apps?
Yes. Yeah. We're constantly looking at that and deciding which ones, merit stuff. One of the other good things is that each time you update the app, it sort of refreshes. All of the user rankings will stay there, but they'll typically display the reviews of the latest version. So it really gives you an incentive to fix your app so that the next people review, the things that people will see next are going to be on the latest particular version. So it's very important. You just really have to weigh what's the cost of doing that versus what you're going to get in return. And sometimes it's better messaging within the app of we're not doing this because of X, Y, Z, or it's explaining the app description. Just like everything though, people don't like to read. They just like to touch, install, whatever, and if it doesn't meet their needs. You're going to get some negative reviews. Not all of them you can deal with.
All right.